Hello everyone, my name is Avalon and today in my academy we're going to look at the Super Mario Bros. 2 mushroom that just came out in the Super Mario Maker update. This power-up changes the way the SMB1 works massively, in that you can now ride enemies and lift them and throw them. You can also ride certain course features, which will of course include cannonballs. You can lift them also, and enemies such as bombs, which will still trigger on-off switches once you lift them to trigger them instead of jumping on them. You can lift up Goombas, which will not trigger on-off switches, and you can get Koopas into their shell form. Something that is quite exciting for trolling is that you can also pull Snowballs to launch out on-off buttons. These can also be used to kill enemies throughout the world. Finally, a snowball can hit a power block, and also question mark blocks. This is all very useful. Also, when lifting larger enemies, they can still trigger P-switches. The last thing that this power-up can get you do is jump an extra block. So normally you wouldn't be able to reach this flag, even when run jumping. However, with a charge jump, you can make your way up to the top and clear that first stage. The first way we're going to look at is one of the lifting mechanics, where you can now lift up clouds, which can give you a way to block off lower areas until you have this power-up. Now this can be used in a variety of ways, such as blocking off areas ahead of you. Now with this, we can block this pipe off here and put a time aspect to it. Of course, this is going nowhere, and that ball has just killed Luigi's chances of progressing. Luckily, with the checkpoint, you can learn to quickly pull your way down and escape the rolling ball. If you are more astute, you will see there is a way to duck underneath it, allowing you to clear the way. If you do use this setup, please make sure there's a way for the player to kill themselves in this section, because if they don't get this, the following spike balls do not make their way down this area. Using these blue bridges along the base of this part also helps disguise that cloud that was previously in place. You can also use the clouds in simple order of operations experiments. So it would appear that you want to make your way down to this fire flower to get through, however you will find a one-way with no way to return, giving the player an option in how they wish to die, whether it be from the boo or from the fireball. Now, the correct way to have done this, I feel, is quite well indicated with how these tracks are, in that if you pull up these mushrooms, you can get your fire flower here, collect it, and then proceed through the level. Sticking with the theme of lifting, with this power-up you can now lift items such as power blocks through one-ways, such as that one there, allowing you to clear your way forward on this stage here. It is worth noting that you can set up a situation like this where it appears that they'll need to clear their way to this pipe by collecting these pals and slowly killing these bunches. However, unfortunately, there is no way to do that without taking damage, and the only thing that they have released from this pipe is a big boo. This is of course just one way of hiding progression from the player, and is more just designed to be a puzzle setup to get them up to here, where there is this on-off switch here, which you clearly need in order to proceed, and a pipe. So if we go through the pipe, you'll find a snowball place, and advice that you can hit the on-off switch with a snowball. There is also the outline of a P door here, and a P switch tantalizingly up there. My hope is that the players would think they can take the snowball back through the pipe, which of course you can't actually carry items back through pipes with the SMB2 power-up, so it would destroy the snowball. Like so. I'm hoping that they'll realise that before they realise the shells here. I would probably in an actual level set this up to hide the Koopa a little bit better, but hopefully they will then go back through the pipe and find this muncher, will crush them, still unable to hit that P-switch, no matter how much they might wish to do so. Assuming the player does grab the Koopa shell and use it to trigger the on-off switch, they can make their way onwards through the level, where they find this next setup, where there is a blocked door here, which they cannot make their way through. and a door they can. In this room, we have ourselves a nice big red Koopa, which, again, this is just a simple setup that would imply you need to throw it in one direction or another direction. I'm hoping that players will just throw it off the top of this and destroy this back wall here, thus creating themselves a problem. Obviously, if you do this, make sure there is some way for the player to kill themselves somewhere in this room. Now, if the player does choose to pick up this red shell and then they choose to throw it at this door, they will clear their path only to find a one-way and then lose the shell, unable to make their way onto this door. Again, make sure there is a way for the player to kill themselves, but I think that will get a couple of laughs in that the first time they'll probably just jump on it and lose it this way, and then the second time, of course, they will find that one way. The correct way to solve this room, I will quickly show you. Take your Koopa and throw him to the right from where you started. Now, my improvements to this room would be to indicate that is what you expect the player to do. Of course, that Koopa shell does come back towards the player, but has revealed the way to this door that was previously blocked off. There is more fun that can be had with the lifting mechanic, in that you can actually lift up unoccupied shells, shall we say, which you can use again to throw at on-off switches. Unfortunately, this one just blocks the door with a muncher, because the correct thing to do with this shell is actually to wear it. So for the first time ever in SMB1, you can now pick up shells and put them on your head, which is great for both shelmets and spiky helms. So with that, I can lift the thwomp out of the way and proceed. Here we have another situation where there is a choice for the player to either kick the shell into the POW or wear the shell. Having just taught the player that they can wear the shell to lift up the thwomp, I would hope that the player would choose to lift up the thwomp, knocking into the safe zone and seeing that pipe above, finding out that this door in fact only goes to the start of the level. So like I said, the correct option was to kick it into the POW, which then frees up you to move forwards. On this section, I've got a little tutorial up here that tells you that a spiny helmet will of course kill munchers, which is great. Hopefully, having taught the player that, they will try, well, I'm hoping that a player would try and jump on top of this spiny shell in order to pick it up, only to find themselves damaged, and then the correct option to reveal itself. Now, you can further trap the player into the situation by giving the way to die down below, and making this jump here only accessible by super jump, but I chose to create a different way of doing things, which was to make this part only accessible by super jump. So again, you need to make sure your player has a way to die, and they do in this room, but it's a bit complicated. But we will return here with the power-up shortly. So, assuming you make it here with your power-up, you can of course super jump your way to the top, moving this muncher and getting through the door. Finally, something that has the most potential in my opinion is the super jump. So this wall here, Mario cannot get over it. Even if I build all of my momentum for a full speed run, I cannot get up there. However, with the super mushroom, I can bounce my way straight up with no issue at all. That is well worth noting that it takes a bit of time to get this charged up, which is why the cursed key works fantastically with this, forcing the player to wait whilst the horrible Phantus comes towards them. Your player appropriately freaked out, you can troll them with little setups like that, where when they have to wait, the spring will push them into a direction, and the cursed key works like a better version of a boo death in that it's even harder for the player to die, which should be quite amusing when it's not too frequent. Hopefully, the player would learn the lesson, avoid the spring, duck the Phantos, and then make their way up to here. Now, just from the way I've set this room up, you could technically just jump up that half wall without having to wait for the charge on the jump, but that's just a bad design on my behalf. You would ideally block that off so the player has to charge the jump. Now, situations like this are great because you can teach the player that a block will push them through a thin gap. However, they can also jump and move whilst in these areas. But the main point is the block will push them. So as you saw there, the block will actually crush the player in this setup, encouraging them to use that sideways jump. A similar way to achieve the same thing is to have spike blocks up above and force the player to stay ducked. Now this comes with a secondary troll in that whilst the player is ducking here, they might super jump their way out, only to find themselves hitting their head on these spikes. The only way to get out of this place safely is to do a normal jump, not a super jump. And then the next room is a simple power-up check. Do you have the power-up? You can't sprint up these, you can't get up here in any way at all without that super jump. So yeah, when Luigi is pushed under spikes, without holding duck, he actually just stays ducked, even though they are spikes and should damage him. I also like using the curse keys in these sections just because it adds a little bit of pressure on the player to hurry themselves along and may encourage them to make some foolish errors. Once you make it through to this section with the power-up, it's just a matter of avoiding Phantos whilst power jumping your way to the top. It's a good little bit of pressure to put on the player, and it just gets them up to the top in this format, which is handy. Using that, you can teach the player, once again, to make their way to the top. However, this time, the key is nothing to them, and they can't go anywhere. Again, giving them this key guarantees there is a way for the player to die, and also the way that the scroll lock was set up with that bomb and that hard block, you couldn't see the correct path until the bomb had gone off, which gives you a clear direction as to where you need to go next. So you can make your way back up this place. Luigi's face looks ridiculous when he duck jumps like this. And this last section, the player might now try and jump, but they can't. And even though the way forward may be revealed, the only way to actually get up here is to get some full momentum and a jump. You can then collect your key and slide under the wall, proceeding through the level. Finally, since they're all the rage at the moment, we have a nice non-suspicious setup here with a cloud for Barry to pull out. I'm hoping players may think that they now can't complete the level if they got hit on their way through, but there is actually this one way carrying all the way across to here, or this semi-solid carrying all the way across to here, stopping you proceeding, just for a bit of fun, and then a little bit of shiny bait over here, which actually leads you through the pipe and to the end of the level. Nice little one-up for the player there as well. I'm really excited to play through the new updates and see how the new trolls that develop and the new meta that will change around them. There's so much you can now do with these new items, and I will continue to go through them in this series. But the Super Mario Bros. 2 mushroom was especially special to me because that game meant a lot to me personally, and it just the tune that comes along with it is great, and it just brings you so many opportunities to play with. So that is a couple of ideas on how to use the SMB2 mushroom in your troll levels. There is endless potential for this, and if you do use it in your troll level, please comment the level code below because I would love to see it. Also, if you want to see how the setups or the timings for any of these work, head over to the Discord where there will be a guide. I have been Avalon, and I hope you've learned some great ways to troll whilst looking through my academy. Have a great day, everyone.